And now, onto today's business matters. Drug giant Roche said today it would invest $50 billion in the US over the next 5 years. It's one of the biggest such moves made by major companies following the sweeping US tariffs. The US firm said the move would create more than 12,000 jobs, including nearly 6,500 during construction. Roche said its investment will include new research facilities and expanded manufacturing in locations including Indiana, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and California. Medicines are currently exempt from U.S. tariffs. But Trump had signaled he would impose tariffs on such imports as the president intends to boost domestic output of pharmaceuticals. Walgreens has agreed to pay the government $300 million to settle an opioid lawsuit in the Justice Department. The pharmacy is alleged to have illegally filled millions of invalid prescriptions for controlled substances. The company then sought payment for many of those invalid prescriptions through federal health care programs. If Walgreens is sold, merged, or transferred before fiscal year 2032, the pharmacy would owe the U.S. government an additional $50 million. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has not lowered borrowing costs. He said that rates are fine where they are at, especially given that inflation is still above the 2% target and that the U.S. economy still faces uncertainty. U.S. stocks posted steep losses yesterday, with the Dow falling nearly 1,000 points. President Donald Trump has repeatedly warned of slowing economic growth unless the U.S. central bank lowers interest rates as soon as possible. In a Truth Social post yesterday, Trump renewed his criticism of the Fed chair over interest rates. He wrote, "Preemptive cuts in interest rates are being called for by many," adding that there has been virtually no inflation. Kevin Hassett, director of the White House National Economic Council, told reporters before that the administration is pursuing ways to terminate Powell. Powell has said that removing him is not permitted under the law. The Fed chief's term expires next year. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent recently confirmed that the White House will start interviewing candidates to succeed Powell in the fall. The Android versus Apple battle could be heating up. A weak point in the market may have been found. Where phones are made has become much more relevant since President Trump laid out 145% tariffs on China. Financial services firm Wedbush Securities estimates 90% of iPhone production is still in China, whereas for Samsung, Counterpoint Research estimates 90% of its production is in Vietnam. Some analysts are skeptical that diversified manufacturing will lead to Apple users converting. Smartphones and other tech fall under tariff exemptions, but President Trump has said he plans tariffs soon targeting semiconductors, which power electronics. Paul Atkins was sworn in as chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission yesterday. He was confirmed by the Senate earlier this month. Atkins served as an SEC commissioner from 2002 to 2008 under former President George W. Bush. The agency said during that tenure, Atkins advocated for transparency and consistency in the agency. After leaving his post, he founded Potomac Global Partners. Solar panels from several countries in Southeast Asia could end up with extremely high tariffs from the U.S. This after American manufacturers accused Chinese-owned companies of flooding the market with subsidized solar energy products. Duties could go as high as 3,500%. NTD Shar Marshall has more details.
Solar cells from Chinese-owned companies in Cambodia could soon face tariffs of more than 3,500%. This comes after a year-long trade investigation by the Department of Commerce. U.S. trade officials have set high tariff levels on most solar cells from Southeast Asia.
The 3,500% that you're seeing in the headline is for 4 specific manufacturers that are all based in Cambodia that the U.S. International Trade Commission said did not cooperate very well in their investigation.
Aaron Nichols, a solar advocacy specialist, says this case shows why it's difficult to make tariffs work in the modern world. Countries like China try to circumvent the tariffs by simply moving their manufacturing to other countries.
The reason that we're in this place with these particular manufacturers is because we applied tariffs on China because they were intentionally hurting the American solar market by dumping product at low prices. And China just shifted manufacturing to Southeast Asia. And then we had to follow China to Southeast Asia, and we had to apply tariffs on those companies. And then they shifted somewhere else. And that's why tariffs are very difficult to actually apply and make work, because the company that's manufacturing can usually just shift manufacturing to a place that doesn't have tariffs so that they don't have to pay them.
The tariffs unveiled Monday vary widely depending on the company and country, but are broadly higher than the preliminary duties announced last year.
The 3,500% tariffs are on 4 Cambodian manufacturers. There's a Solar Power World article that goes into all of the tariffs, specifically across Cambodia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam, and the range is between 15% to 900%, and it's only those 4 Cambodian manufacturers that have this 3,500% tariff.
Leading the charge in this case is the American Alliance for Solar Manufacturing Trade Committee, made up of leading U.S. solar manufacturers. They accuse the Chinese-owned companies in Southeast Asia of dumping solar panels that are priced below the cost of production. But another trade group, the Solar Energy Industries Association, says the tariffs will harm U.S. solar producers. They say the duties will raise prices on imported solar cells that are assembled into panels by American factories. The U.S. International Trade Commission will vote in June to finalize the tariffs. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
A price hike and aggressive promotions from rivals led to Verizon losing more subscribers than Wall Street had expected. The company had warned last month that there would be soft subscriber growth due to off-season promotions from AT&T and T-Mobile. Based on data from FactSet, Verizon lost about 290,000 monthly bill-paying wireless subscribers in the first quarter. This is countered by the telecommunications giant rising in shares in the first quarter earnings. Secondhand could soon be the first choice. Industry experts are anticipating a trend toward thrift stores amid tariff fears. Here's more.
Last year's fashion could be this year's savings. Uncertainty over tariffs have people rushing to thrift and consignment stores and apps. Shoppers want to snag deals on new outfits, and some want to turn their old clothes into cash. That's what the owners of the Owl's Nest in Tennessee are seeing. They say they're tracking the tariff announcements and expecting more customers if the tariff pause is lifted. Market research from Sensor Tower indicates that the primary buyers for used clothing may be expanding beyond millennials and Gen Z. The firm found downloads for 9 resale marketplace apps increased between January and March. This includes eBay, OfferUp, and Poshmark. There are some U.S. sellers who will be hit by tariffs. Some import secondhand inventory from European Union countries. Those would be subject to 20% duties if President Trump moves forward with the reciprocal tariffs. A circular fashion coalition is seeking an exemption for used and recycled goods for resale.
A quality control program to test fluid milk and other dairy products has been suspended. An internal email was sent by FDA divisions of dairy safety and reviewed by Reuters. It said that it's ending its Proficiency testing program for grade A raw milk and finished products. This is due to reduced capacity in its food safety and nutrition division. An HHS spokesperson said the lab that does the testing was set to be decommissioned before staff cuts from the Trump administration. Greek yogurt giant Chobani is set to build a $1.2 billion production facility in upstate New York. Governor Kathy Hochul made the announcement and said this would create more than 1,000 jobs. Chobani broke ground on a new state-of-the-art facility this week. It's going to produce 1 billion pounds of Chobani's yogurt, creamers, and other products. Hochul described the project as the largest investment in natural food manufacturing in American history. Chobani's CEO is investing heavily in the U.S. Just last month, he unveiled plans to spend $500 million on its plant in Idaho and said there's more to come. Boeing has landed a deal to sell portions of its aviation software business. The company announced the more than $10.5 billion deal with Thoma Bravo. The agreement includes selling digital tools and services for aviation operations, like a flight planning provider and a navigation app. Boeing is trying to cut costs and raise money as the beleaguered plane maker continues to struggle after several notable incidents involving its aircraft in recent years. The deal is expected to close by the end of the year. A critical aviation safety system is getting an upgrade ahead of schedule. The Federal Aviation Administration's Notice to Airmen system, also called NOTAM, will be replaced by September. NOTAMs are bulletins with critical safety information all pilots must read before flying. The current system failed twice in the last 3 years and was scheduled for replacement by 2030. In a news release, the FAA says it was able to find a way to cut through red tape much faster to get the upgrade done. The Transportation Secretary says the new system will make air travel safer and more efficient. Today, the International Monetary Fund slashed its forecast for the growth in the United States, in China, and most of the world. The global financial organization pointed to the impact of U.S. tariffs. The IMF's chief economist had this to say.
So reference estimate, which is based on measures announced up to and including the April 2nd Rose Garden tariff announcements and some of the countermeasures immediately after that, finds a significant downgrade to global growth to about 2.8% for this year and 3% for next year. That's about 0.5 percentage point lower for 2025, and cumulated 25-26, it's 0.8 percentage points. So it's quite significant, and it's hitting all the regions of the world.
The IMF said trade tensions and extremely high levels of uncertainty would have a significant impact on global economic activity. The IMF chief economist added that trade would continue, but it would cost more and would be less efficient. The French economist told reporters that the IMF was not forecasting a recession in the U.S. However, he added that the odds of a downturn have increased from about 25% to 37%. Mexico's president is pushing back on the International Monetary Fund's new forecast. Claudia Sheinbaum is challenging the IMF's down prediction. She explained that public investment would prevent the economy from contracting. She also touted her government's Plan Mexico, an effort to boost domestic industry amid tariffs imposed by President Trump on some imports from Mexico. And as skiers hit the slopes, data is helping resorts operate more efficiently. For smaller destinations, this information means they can compete with bigger players. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on one mountain in New England using technology to enhance the alpine experience.
New Hampshire's Black Mountain still has enough snow on the slopes to keep skiers happy. Owner Eric Mogensen says it's a special place.
This is kind of your quintessential independent mountain, right? It has that vibe, that feel, and that's what people really want.
Mogensen stresses that in the ski resort business, praying for fresh powder isn't enough.
When you don't have data to fall back on and you don't have a marketing plan to fall back on, you're just kind of like hoping that it snows one day. And hoping that it snows is not a business plan.
Mogensen's team crunches the numbers to monitor exactly what his customers are doing. That way they can adjust staffing and resources accordingly. Using data to make his resort more efficient keeps the business alive and thriving.
A lot of general managers will go out and look how many rows of cars are parked, and that's kind of how they tell how busy they are. We really want to look at transactional data down to the deepest level. When are people buying hot dogs and hamburgers, right? How do we staff the cafeteria and at what time?
When Mogensen learned Black Mountain was in danger of closing, he bought it. The entrepreneur believes that technology will help him compete with larger resorts.
Val and Alterra and the large operators, they can do a lot of things at scale that we can't. They can buy 20 snowcats at a time, 10 chairlifts, those type of things. We can't do that, but we're really nimble here at Black. We can decide to change the way we groom very quickly or change the way we open trail.
Mogensen says he aims to make skiing more accessible.
Bigger isn't always better. And I think that we're definitely honing in on this identity crisis that's in skiing, that skiing doesn't have to be a luxury good. it can be a community center. It can be a place to gather and celebrate and share and explore and do those things.
Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Streaming numbers show viewers want to find out more about the papacy and the papal selection process following Pope Francis's death. The papal intrigue movie Conclave soared to the top spot on Prime Video's bestsellers list less than 48 hours after news broke about the Pope's death. According to data from Luminate, the film saw a 283% increase in viewership between Sunday and Monday across all platforms. The acclaimed film follows a papal selection process filled with intrigue and drama. Luminate also says U.S. viewership of the Netflix's Two Popes surged 417% from Sunday to Monday. The Motion Picture Academy has announced an important new rule that directly affects the judges that vote on Oscar winners. Here's more.
It may seem obvious, but now it's official. Motion Picture Academy members must watch all of the nominated films in a category to vote in that category. Before, voters were encouraged to see every nominee before voting. Now it's a requirement. The Academy also announced guidelines for its newest category, Achievement in Casting. That award debuts on the 98th Academy Awards, March 15, 2026.
Okay, on to markets now. U.S. stocks surged today, with all major indices rising over 2%. And this is coming as upbeat corporate earnings and signs of easing U.S.-China trade tensions boosted investor confidence. Now, despite President Trump's criticism of Fed Chair Jerome Powell, markets remained optimistic. It's supported by comments from Treasury Secretary Bessent suggesting a potential de-escalation in trade disputes. The Minneapolis Fed president reaffirmed the importance of Fed independence as well. Meanwhile, ongoing tariff uncertainties led to the IMF to lower its 2025 U.S. growth forecast to about 1.8%. And that's it on today's Business Matters.